Welcome back to my Animal Crossing New Horizons. Technically, the year 4 thumbnail art time-lapse, not actually the, daily videos. So here we are, it's a bit belated, I apologise for that, but thank you for your patience, and I hope the wait was worth it, to be honest. So I'm, again, just like last year, I'm going to commentate over the art time-lapse of me drawing this so I can share my thoughts and my intentions about what is going on. Now, to start off with, I think you can tell very obviously from this thumbnail art, it's a little bit different, I suppose, in feel to the other previous three. The previous three are very bright and, colourful and very in your face, I suppose. While this one's much more subdued and much darker, for one, because it's at night time. But yeah, that's part of the intention. Is I felt like a strong sense of community is really what was missing, mainly throughout the previous Fawnhollow thumbnail arts. Yeah, the first one, of course, was just a reference to the actual promotional art, and then the second one was, of course, let's celebrate all the villagers who've come and gone, and the third one was very much like here's a stage photo of looking at time, Fawnhollow throughout the entire year, so it's relevant at all times. This time I'm I don't know how many years there's going to be of Animal Crossing still to come, but I want things to, branch out from that. So this one is one of more comfort and the sense of community, because one thing I think was really missing from that third year thumbnail art was the sense of community. So I really tried to emphasise that in this one, is that all the villagers are basically directly interacting with each other. You can see it, maybe not so clearly with Rowan, I think, but still. Excuse me. But it's a sense of community that's bringing Fawnhollow together, and I think it's a nice thing to emphasise in this thumbnail art. Right now I'm doing the mid-level sketches, rough sketches, quote. I skipped out me doing the sort of planning phase where I'm just trying to figure out where everyone should roughly go with the blocking and shapes of the thumbnails of a thumbnail art, ironically. And this is a sort of, I did my mid-level sketch, and now I'm doing a refined sketch, but I'm basically doing I'm drawing what the line art should look like and trying to figure out all the small details now before it becomes a problem. You can also see that I'm drawing in different colours. I draw the base body in the black, and then I draw on top of it the clothing sketch in a different colour, this time being green. Normally I use blue, but you can see I already use blue for the background and red for the foreground, so that's why, and it just helps differentiate things. I think coming up with clothes is actually my favourite part of doing these thumbnail arts. It's really fun to go through the Animal Crossing catalogue of clothing and try and figure out what each one will wear. You can I'll talk about it more when I go into the colouring phase. You can see all their distinct styles of every single villager, and I hope it conveys their personality quite well, or my own personal headcanon to my personality. I'm not really sure. I will say that sometimes I do try and adhere, of course, to the Animal Crossing style, but sometimes it's a bit to its detriment. Just a quick note here that you'll see actually in this refined sketch of a background and foreground, I put actually a lot more detail in that than ends up actually appearing in the final thumbnail art, and it was just a conscious choice at the end, being I feel like it ended up taking all away from the art looking at the sketch, because there's a very strong sort of shape language in this art. You can see with the campfire being the central focus point and the circle around it, and all the villagers sort of making up a wall around the circle. And I feel like having a lot of small things which take away from that visually didn't really help the art, at least the way I wanted it to, so I ended up keeping it quite simple. And it's a thing with all this art, it's nice to put details in. You should put details to make sure your art doesn't feel empty, but you don't need to render all details to a certain degree. You can make things simple, and I think that's something I really learned by doing thumbnail art, is that not everything needs to be as detailed as it can be. You can chill out on some things here and there, and you'll see that more, I suppose, when I actually do a background. But for now, I'm just doing the line art, and you can see the line art is a little bit different from what I usually do. Usually I try to have very sort of crisp and clean line art with very nice edges and that sort of thing, but now here I'm using a much softer brush, and I'm being a lot more lax and loose with it, and it's all to contribute to that really sort of cozy, comforting feeling, Right, it's not taking itself so seriously like the thumbnail art previously, where it's a post-staged photo. I suppose it's a photo shoot of it's very deliberate with everything. This is just meant to show something cozy and comfy, and a sense of community, I suppose, together. I'm getting messages crazy on Discord, which I'm promptly ignoring, but still. So the line art is just what it is. I was saying that my previous point from before, that the adherence to the Animal Crossing style is both to the benefit and detriment, I think, of these Thubmnail arts. A benefit being, obviously, it's very recognisable. Everything ties together quite well. You see it and you're like, oh, I know that item in game, or I know this is exactly what it looks like, and it feels like it's actually part of the game, which is, of course, a big point of actually these Thubmnail arts. They need to feel like they're actually relevant to the game. It's a bit to its detriment as well, because sometimes it's really hard to portray the villagers' emotions, or sometimes, the villagers are obviously 3D models. That doesn't always translate well to 2D framing, so I had to take liberties here and there. Like, obviously the villagers are not this tall. I've sort of like stretched them out to be like a step between chibi and fully anthropomorphized, just because otherwise them wearing clothes doesn't really work as well. I think they're a bit more stretched out than they were in the third year Thumbnail art, because it just worked better. So we get onto the colouring. But also I just want to touch upon the fact that oh yeah, do you like these new eyes? Ooh, look at that. So cute. But it's also the colours sometimes really clash with things. Like, it doesn't always work particularly well, which is why maybe in the future I think I'll probably do less adherence to the actual Animal Crossing style, because that way I have much more freedom to choose, exactly the clothes and colours I want. There's a lot of times when I was choosing clothes, especially for Vivian, you'll see I don't really like the colorations, but there aren't any other colorations that work for her, because she's meant to wear like these blacks and purples kind of, so it's like, what can you do? But yeah, the colouring isn't all that interesting. These, of course, got a very different style, sort of like a kawaii, comfy style is probably what I describe it as. Of course, we see both Fauna and Phoebe here. Phoebe being our resident sort of like goth girl. She's not really wearing that goth-y sort of thing this time, but she's got very dark colours, while Fauna's got very sort of cutesy, pastel, soft colours, softy aesthetic or whatever. Apollo just wearing very normal clothes, I'm going to be honest. He's very much of a grandpa in my mind of Fawnhollow, and his trousers are very overly detailed here, so much for me removing detail. And Amelia, of course, being like the grandma, I suppose, of Fawnhollow. At least that's how I see them. They're like the eldest two of a bunch. You could say like a mother or father, or grandma or grandpa if you want to be a bit more teasing. So that style sort of reflects that. I think it feels a bit more like older and mature in a sense. Rowan, of course, just being jock, here he is, just in casual athleisure. Raymond to me is always like a sort of like quirky quirky uncle, he likes to be a bit goofy, but he still wears like sweater vests and button-up shirts or whatever. Vivian, of course, being as fashionable as ever, designer clothes all around, but you can see with the black and purple it's a bit of a contrast. Like, I took the colours directly from the actual clothing colours, but I think it is a little bit to its detriment, and I think the purple is a bit bright. It works mostly pretty well, like most of the other villagers. I think like Raymond looks fantastic, Fauna looks great, Lily looks fantastic as well with her very sort of natural look. It's like it looks like she just like came out of the garden. Audie's got very sort of like casual, athletic, sort of comfy style going on. I don't really know how to describe it. It's basically very simple. And then Biscuits, of course, got his like crazy patterns and stylings, and also quite a cutesy style, quite a childish style, I suppose, at the same time, as we go on to the background. The background, I don't really know what there's much to say. There's like a campsite. It's just like a made up campsite. We're in the middle of a forest. There's not as much details, I suppose, going on. Skies, I must say, are my favourite thing to actually paint in background wise, and it's a shame I had to cover up so much of it with trees in the first place. But I think like this is around the point where this is where the April Fool's video was taken. Oh, you can also see I intended to put 3 tents in, but then I got rid of that tent because I was like, it really is very distracting. But if you look closely at like more of a background, it's not as detailed as you might think it is. Like, it's a thing I very much learned from doing thumbnail ads, is it's a thumbnail, it's small, it's tiny, I don't need all that much detail. No one's going to see if I properly render all those leaves on the back. So basically it's just like rough tree shape, get a different colour, draw loads of lines on it, draw a load of lines in a different colour, and just do it like 3 more times, and then when you zoom out it's like, whoa, that's like a fully rendered tree, despite the fact it's not. Anyway, so we got tents in the background, here I'm just putting some details in, not a huge amount of details, just enough to give it a bit more visual interest, like the logs. I'm just like, it should have something going on, they shouldn't just be plain brown. The stone should have a bit of texture to them. The fire I actually had a lot of trouble with, like, because I didn't know how much transparency to put on this fire, and when I put logs in, I was like, does that look better? I don't know, who cares? One thing I might have forgot to actually do is I might have actually forgot to put a glow around the fire, but oh well. I did end up thinking that the art looked a little bit empty, not on the ground. I think the ground's mostly kind of fine, it's quite busy with the triangle works, but I was like, around the it's just like, I feel like there should be more, and I was like, okay, fireflies, brilliant, fantastic. And the fireflies, I think, really elevate to the art and a new level of comfiness. But yeah, the shading's a bit different to how I usually do shading. You can see I normally have like different tiers of shading. I have like the base shading, and I have 1.5 shadows. It's called, I took that from some random Japanese artist ages ago, and I really love doing it. But this one, I'm doing like subtraction based shadows, where I paint everything is filled with shadows, and I remove the shadows because I want to simulate that campfire glow. I feel like if I do it the other way around, I end up missing a load of shadows, and that's not exactly how it is. Because we are in the darkness here, you know, we need that campfire glow, and it's only going to reach certain places. Of course, the lighting isn't quite, you know, accurate to how it should be in real life. Here I'm just adding 1.5 shadows, so just like an extra layer of depth to the shadows. Not everyone is illuminated correctly or properly, but, you know, you take creative liberties and all that, just for the sake of clarity. Here I'm just giving an orange glow to everyone. I don't think a campfire in real life would have that strong an orange glow, but there you go. Oh, that's why I didn't do an orange glow, because I didn't want to overpower the villagers, and I did it on the ground instead, which I think really helps. And here I'm just putting the final rim light from the moon in, because I think that really sort of sells the scene as like, yes, this is taking place at night time. If you ever need anything to look like it's taking place at night time, like a light blue rim light, fantastic. You might be like, what are you doing here? Each of our villagers have their own colours, you saw there, and I'm basically just giving everyone a slight glow. Right now I'm basically combining all the colour layers and putting a blurred filter over the top of line art, just to make the colours bleed out the line art a bit more, to make it much more comfy. So yeah, if you have any more questions, I suppose, about my process or what I'm doing, things you want to know why I chose to do something like that, or any other cool details you want explained or noticed, then feel free to ask me. And yeah, happy year 4, and I'm sorry for the delay, but I hope it was worth it. So until next time, bye bye for now.